Okay, it's about 1 minute past the hour. I see people joining. We'll give people a couple minutes here to join, and then we'll kick it off. Okay, I think we'll kick off. So really quick, my name is Jeffrey Moore. I'm a senior staff cloud architect at VMware, and I'm the technical lead for Azure VMware Solution, or AVS, on the VMware side. Today, we'll go through a number of different topics related to the solution. We work closely with Microsoft, so this is a Microsoft product, but we'll go through that in more detail. Again, I'm the lead worldwide for Azure VMware Solution. So we work closely with what they call a global black belt team in Microsoft for Azure VMware Solution, and I'm focused at a global level. Prior to joining the AVS team, I did focus on VMware Cloud and AWS, and also focused on GCVE, which I believe you heard about this morning. So I was part of a multi-cloud team prior to becoming the lead for AVS. And I also have a VCPP background, so anybody who knows that from a VMware perspective, that's our partner program. We work with companies like T-Systems in Germany and Tieto in Finland. I also have a number of different Cisco certifications. So I'm a CCIE in routing and switching, service provider, wireless, and design. And I also have certifications in Google, AWS, and of course, Microsoft. I have a background in primarily networking, but also storage and compute. I have a blog, so if you want any further information, some of the information we talk about today is on my blog page as well. You can go there for reference. I have about 25 years of experience. I'm currently based in Austria. I'm a US citizen, but moved to Austria. My wife is Austrian, and my main focus now within AVS is around customers and partners. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A chat. I prefer to keep it interactive, and we can keep the discussion flexible. So the agenda, I'll talk about AVS, or Azure VMware Solution. I'll also talk about the architecture in more depth and how it integrates with native Azure services. And then we'll talk about something new, or that will be coming soon, about the SD-WAN integration with AVS. So if you have any customers looking to use SD-WAN as connectivity between on-premises and the cloud, this will soon be supported. So a quick overview. Again, we have a number of different multi-cloud platforms within VMware. We work with our partners, hyperscalers, and my main focus is around Microsoft. So if you look at the Microsoft architecture, we support a VMware Cloud Foundation stack. So vCenter, vSphere, vSAN, the compute function, NSXT is part of the overall compute storage and networking piece. We also support this VMware product, this SaaS offering called Hybrid Cloud Extension, or HCX. And I think you saw a demonstration if you did attend the GCVE session. I think Sammy did a good demo on that, migrating a VM from on-prem to the cloud. And that's the main focus for HCX. HCX is independent of any cloud offering, so it's really vSphere to vSphere, so it can go on-prem to on-prem. It just happens to be bundled with AVS. And the really, I think, strength of AVS is that everything is connected through an Azure backbone. So if you want to consume all the native Azure services, the typical one is Azure Active Directory. Everything's connected through the ExpressRoute backbone. And if you want to connect to either a new or existing VNets, similar to VPCs in AWS and GCP, you can do that all via layer 3 backbone. So if you want to spin up one AVS SDDC and connect to one VNet, that's possible. You can also connect one AVS SDDC to multiple VNets, multiple AVS SDDCs to one VNet, et cetera. So there's full flexibility as far as how you want to grow your environment on both sides. And then if we look at the on-prem side, we really run independently of whatever runs on premises because we're unable to control what the customer has. So the typical question is, do I need to have NSXT on premises? The answer is no. Of course, we'd like you to buy NSX. Although if you're just using a simple virtual distributed switch environment using vSphere, that's fully supported, and we can do things like extend networks, and we'll talk about that later. We do support back to vSphere 5.5. Now, there are some dependencies regarding HDX, regarding migrations, but today we do support back to vSphere 5.5. And then we do use an express route service. As I mentioned, we have that backbone between the AVS instance and the Azure services. That is also a connection that you can have between on-prem to the cloud. It's a dedicated service given or supported by Microsoft that allows you to connect from on-prem to the cloud itself. And we'll talk about potential alternatives to that coming up soon. So why AVS? Why would you want to consume that? So there are a number of different use cases. Again, these might be similar to other VMware cloud platforms, but there are some differentiators from a Microsoft perspective. AVS can essentially become your second data center. So you might have two different physical data centers today. You're building all your redundancy, high availability using DR between data center 1 and data center 2. Here, AVS can become your second data center. Okay, so you can start to become asset light by essentially migrating whatever you had in your second data center into AVS. And we do have customers considering that today. And more importantly, it does become potentially your primary data center where you do a full data center evacuation from on-prem into the cloud, and that becomes your primary location for all your workloads. And it obviously gives you full connectivity into all the innovative services from Microsoft, like AI, et cetera. And ironically, we have 3 major customers doing that today for different reasons. One reason is that they have a storage stability issue on premises, and they want to evacuate that as soon as possible. And we're working with them to get that done within 3 months. So using things like HDX, like we talked about before, assists with that migration. And again, we'll talk about that in more detail. I think this is really one of the main differentiators for AVS is the free extended security updates for all the Microsoft OSs. So as you move workloads into the cloud, you can extend those security updates, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. But I think that's I think the Microsoft licensing is the key part of AVS that potentially differentiates it from other cloud offerings. And then rapid capacity increases. We can deploy an AVS SDDC within 2 hours, and if we need to increase capacity, we can do that within 15 minutes. So you can expand and contract as needed. Get to the cloud mandates, or the challenge with transformation, getting from on-prem into a native cloud such as Azure, sometimes was a challenge for some customers, or they found out that workloads operated differently in those public clouds. This changes that model where you can go directly into a vSphere platform based on what you know today. So same operational model, both on-prem and in the cloud. And really the risk-averse migrations. So as application developers are using their environment today, they're developing the applications within a vSphere environment. Their development model remains the same as they go into a platform such as AVS. Okay, so it's like for like. And then contracts ending refresh, potentially we've been in situations where customers want to evacuate by the end of the calendar year. We have 2 customers looking at that right now. They want to, again, go asset light. They have a contract that's expiring for their real estate on premises, and they want to move into AVS. Okay. And again, I think this is the main piece that differentiates AVS is the licensing. So Windows Server 2008 release 2 had a announcement on January 14th. SQL Server ended on July 19th, 2019, and those are allowed to be extended if they move into AVS. And of course, you get special discounts based on the Microsoft licensing as you move your VMs into AVS. Okay, so it does follow to a certain extent the same EA model that you have for native Azure, because AVS is owned and operated by Microsoft. Although I'd always refer to the Microsoft account team or the global black belts for addressing these topics from a licensing perspective. Okay, the architecture and the native Azure integrations. So I've built one slide, but I slowly built it out to kind of show you the different pieces and how they all plug together. Right now, I should take that back. Back in September last year, we GA'd with AVS 2.0, so September 2020. And we have a number of different regions that were supported at that time. This has obviously been expanded, and I can provide that link for you. But effectively, we have connectivity between on-premise across ExpressRoute into AVS and then full connectivity into native Azure. So if we look at it from an on-prem to cloud perspective, any vSphere environment up to or above vSphere 5.5 is supported. We run vSphere 6.7 in AVS. If you try to connect your on-prem into AVS today, we support the ExpressRoute circuit into this Microsoft Enterprise Edge Router, or MSEE, and that has full connectivity into the Azure VNet. So full layer 3 from on-prem into native Azure. Most customers have that today because they're consuming that native cloud service. And AVS connects the exact same way. So it uses ExpressRoute with this additional service called Global Reach, which is provided as a part of the service. And it provides full layer 3 connectivity from AVS into native Azure, full layer 3 connectivity from native Azure into on-prem, and from on-prem back to AVS. So full flexibility. And again, the idea is that you can expand and contract the number of AVS SDDCs, the number of VNets, et cetera, based on how you're building your business. And up until today, we've been supporting NSX 2.5. Now we're going through a transition period where we'll support 3.1.2, and I'll talk about that later in this slide, but that's currently being done right now. And then from a migration perspective, again, we talked about HCX, or hybrid cloud extension. There are 3 different types: a vMotion migration and a bulk migration. vMotion migration allows you to move 1 VM at a time from on-prem in the cloud with 0 downtime. Bulk migration lets you bulk migrate up to 100 VMs at a time, but you have to reboot to the cloud, so there's a minimum downtime. And that's a part of the HCX advanced licensing that comes with AVS. If there's a need to get the best of both worlds, there's a concept called replication assisted vMotion, or RAV, and that allows you to bulk migrate from on-prem to the cloud with 0 downtime because it leverages the vMotion engine underneath. It does require the enterprise license for HCX, although today the service is still in preview, so there's no charge for it, although I think that goes GA roughly in the October timeframe. So if you are considering it and you want to test RAV, it is, I would say, a part of the service today, but it'll be charged once we go GA with the enterprise license in October. And then a lot of customers want to use layer 2 VPN. So I used to work for Cisco before I joined VMware, and there was always this debate, layer 3 versus layer 2. I'm a layer 3 person because I think it has more flexibility, but there are corner cases where layer 2 makes sense. And in this case, if there's a need to have the same IP addresses as you move from on-prem into the cloud, extending your layer 2 connection is necessary because as you move your VMs from on-prem into the cloud, you need to have that layer 2 construct underneath to support the same IP addressing on both sides. And we'll talk about that further. There's further functions that will be coming in NSX 3.1.2, but today, with the current versions that are supported in AVS, we support this in-service software upgrade, so you can essentially upgrade your appliances with 0 downtime or minimum downtime. I think there's 1 second downtime as you upgrade your appliances on premises, but that's supported within HCX holistically. And then Azure Migrate, some people might know what Azure Migrate is. It's a tool living inside native Azure that allows you to do an on-prem assessment of your vSphere environment to move to native Azure. This will also be adopted to essentially provide the sizing for AVS. So it allows you to download an appliance. It runs for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. And then it does the assessment to say how many nodes you need in AVS. If there's a concern about running that appliance on premises, you can also upload a CSV file based on information you might have on premises, and then do your sizing within the Azure Migrate tool. It's a manual process, but it will allow you to know how many AVS nodes you'll need. And then NetApp file services. Some customers use this as an external data store solution. You can also, or soon to be supported for, I'll take that back. It's supported today for NFS, so you can deploy NetApp files if you open a ticket, and you can NFS mount to that NetApp file storage. The support of data stores will come later for NetApp, but today you can do it with NFS. Okay. And then from a storage perspective, you can use blob storage, file sync, or Azure File. So full integration between what you're running in AVS from a VM perspective and all the native services within Azure, as well as all the databases. So as some customers are moving from on-prem into the cloud, they're trying to make a decision, do I want to maintain that potentially MSSQL database or move that into native Azure and have a fully managed service? So they're having that discussion whether or not they land it in AVS or native Azure, but you have both options available today. And then third-party backup. So we just chose as an example Veeam that's also supported. So if you want to have the backup that you're currently using on-prem supported in AVS, that's supported. Commvault is another example. Some customers are looking to change their model. So the main use case there would be operational consistency between on-premise and the cloud. Some customers are looking at also Azure backup, again, the native Azure service. And then the vRealize suite, we just GA'd all the products for this. So vRealize Network Insight, vRealize Automation, vRealize Operations, both on-prem and in the cloud we support. So what we do is we support AVS as an endpoint for any vRealize product that you're running on premises. We also support on-premises as an endpoint for any vRealize cloud platform that you're using. But what we do not support is running the enterprise version of the on-prem vRealize platform on top of AVS. Okay, and that just comes down to licensing and support. And for some people who are unfamiliar, vRealize Network Insight is fully integrated with HCX. So if you're looking for a straightforward way to understand how to group your VMs for migration, vRealize Network Insight can capture network information and give it to HCX to essentially provide grouping so you can migrate into the cloud. And that's also supported with vRealize Network Insight Cloud. Load balancing, this is also a typical topic that we have discussions with customers. We obviously would support load balancers on-prem, third-party load balancers, NSXV, NSXT load balancers. Same idea in AVS. Obviously, we're running NSXT, so today you can use a native NSXT load balancer. We're trying to encourage customers to use the new AVI load balancer, or what we call now advanced load balancer. We do also support third-party platforms like F5 if there's a need for that. Again, operational consistency, customers are using that on premises and they want to use the F5 load balancer in AVS. There is a way to do that, as well as using the native Azure load balancer if needed. Kubernetes, a lot of discussions around Tanzu support on premises. That's also now happening in AVS. We support Tanzu standard, so it's running on top of vSphere 6.7. And then the idea is you can run Tanzu Mission Control, which is a control plane on top, and it allows you to manage the life cycle of your Kubernetes environment on-prem with Tanzu, in AVS with Tanzu, and you can even run Tanzu in native Azure if you would like. But from the AKS or Azure Kubernetes service, you can do policy management. So it doesn't really manage your AKS instance, but it can monitor policies. So if you set a policy in TMC or Tanzu Mission Control, somebody changes something in AKS, it can flag that back to the main console. And then Horizon 8, again, operational model. Do customers want to maintain that model between on-prem and the cloud? If they want to move away from that model and go to a managed service, they can use Horizon Cloud in native Azure or use a native Azure desktop service. Azure Arc, some people may be unfamiliar with this, but Azure Arc ties into the ARM story. So the Azure Resource Manager, this obviously allows you to ARM allows you to manage all your resources within Azure, and Arc was an extension of that as of 18 or 24 months ago, and allows you to manage non-Azure instances such as vSphere on premises. So this is fully supported with the vSphere on premises, and it'll come into AVS within the next few months. And of course, Active Directory, a lot of customers want this. They're running Active Directory on premises, and now they want to move into a native Azure Active Directory service. How do they federate that together, and how do they eventually move that completely into the cloud? So that's where we are today with AVS 2.0, and then AVS 2.0 plus, I would call it, is really from now until the next 6 months. So what's going on there? There are more regions. So on the bottom, there's 4 more regions, but it's been expanded even further. And again, there's a good website from Microsoft that provides you all the new regions, as well as the next phase of regions. Disaster recovery is something that also has gone GA. So Site Recovery Manager has gone GA as of 1 or 2 weeks ago. And again, operational consistency, if customers are using that on premises, they can also use Site Recovery Manager in AVS. There's also a third-party platform that Microsoft is partnering with called Jetstream, and that allows you to do DR into AVS, but instead of writing it to the vSAN storage, it writes all the information to a blob storage in native Azure itself. Okay, so it really depends on where the customer is with their overall DR decision. HA will eventually come with HCX. It's going to hopefully happen this calendar year. Again, that's part of the HCX product, but it's quite important for some of our customers. And then NSXT 3.1.2, that's now starting to transition. So if you spin up a new AVS SDDC today, you'll get 3.1.2 within NSXT, and that's really primarily the main focus there is around mobility optimized networking that allows you to have a default gateway on both sides, so you can ingress and egress either on-prem or in the cloud for more optimized routing. And then again, the data stores, NetApp file storage will have the data store exposure directly into vSphere. And you'll even start to hear things about disk pools, which is a service directly in native Azure. It'll be attached into the vSphere environment within AVS as a data store by iSCSI. Okay, and then Azure Arc, as I mentioned before, that will be fully supported with AVS. So from the Azure Resource Manager on the right, you'll be able to manage your vSphere environment on premises in AVS, mainly power up, power down, connect, network, that type of thing. So that story will evolve, but most customers are staying with the vRealize products today. And then RV tools and live optics. Some customers use that today to scope or size their environment. There is a plan to provide live optics in a format where you can directly import it into Azure Migrate, so there's no need to manually change things. Same thing with RV tools, you just export as a Azure Migrate CSV and put it directly into Azure Migrate, just to simplify the overall assessment and sizing. Okay, so that's pretty much where we are with the overall concept regarding how things fit together from on-prem into AVS and native Azure, all the different Azure services that tie into AVS today and within the next 6 months. Now we'll go into maybe something that's important to some customers, at least our customers here in Europe and Asia Pac, and some customers in the US. And that's really integration of SD-WAN with the AVS. So we've been working with the HCX BU and the AVS teams to get this supported. And today, what's supported from an AVS perspective is, what's supported today from an AVS perspective in SD-WAN is that if a customer has SD-WAN deployed, they've connected their data center across the SD-WAN infrastructure to their branch offices, and they have end-to-end connectivity. And now they've decided maybe they want to go with AVS. So how could they connect from their data center into AVS today? Today, they would have to buy an express route service. Again, that's the service provided by Microsoft for the end-to-end connectivity, because there's a dependency from an HCX perspective for the migrations to go across the express route service. And the reason for that is because it's been tested and validated with express route. But the customers could do VM to VM communications. So they might have VMs on the branch in their DC in AVS, and they could do branch to branch or VM to VM communication by putting VeloCloud edges into a native Azure VNet, which is connected to the express route backbone into AVS, and then attach their SD-WAN infrastructure and have the VM to VM communication there. So the migrations would go across the express route, the VM to VM communication going across the SD-WAN. It's a manual deployment within the VNet, but you can use an existing VNet if you have that deployed. There's also a second model. It follows the same exact concept. The only thing that's different is that you would leverage a virtual WAN hub, again, a different construct from Microsoft Azure. And the piece that's different there is that the VeloCloud Edge, or the now VMware SD-WAN Edge, is fully integrated into the vWAN hub. So it's just a simple click and deploy, enter the BGP ASN number, what your subnets are, and it automatically will associate that into the vWAN hub for network connectivity. There's no need to do manual lifecycle. It does it all for you. So Model 1 and Model 2 are exactly the same from a networking perspective. The only difference is one's manual, one is automatic. Okay, but both require that HCX traffic goes across the express route connection. So how do we eventually evolve it into something different? If we go and take a look at the same models, so we talked about Model 1 and Model 2, this is Model 7 and Model 8, but the pictures are the same. We have the native Azure VNet on the top and the virtual WAN hub on the bottom. Same connectivity from an SD-WAN perspective, same connectivity into AVS, VM to VM communication, but the piece that's different is the HCX part. So from an HCX perspective, we can now do HCX migrations from on-premise, well, I should say it's coming, from on-premise across the SD-WAN infrastructure that's been built by the customer into either the native Azure VNet that's supporting the VeloCloud Edge, or I keep saying VeloCloud Edge, but SD-WAN, VMware SD-WAN Edge, or inside the virtual WAN hub from Azure. So it could be a much more consistent way of passing all the traffic, including the HCX migrations through the SD-WAN into native Azure and then across the express route backbone into AVS. So this is coming. We've been working closely again with the HCX engineering team. It really comes down to things such as MTU size, latency, and delay, as well as bandwidth. And we're currently targeting HCX 4.2 to support HCX over SD-WAN. So that's that'll be the next release. And if you have interest in that and the timelines associated to that, please feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about that further. Okay, but that's quite a large step for some major customers here in Europe, as well as 2 major customers that we have in the US, as well as Asia Pac. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so let's say I want to also consider a different approach for using SD-WAN. Maybe I've gone down a different path and there are different ways I've connected my networks together, or maybe I'm using a cloud service provider such as Equinix or Megaport. So again, if the customer's deployed their SD-WAN infrastructure and they want to connect into a cloud such as AVS, they can do that, but maybe they're in a situation where they're currently using Equinix or Megaport or some cloud service provider, and they want to continue going down the path as far as where they're building their networking constructs. So Equinix and Megaport both support some kind of hosting cloud domain for third-party products. And here's where we could deploy the VeloCloud Edge, again, connecting the existing SD-WAN into the Equinix backbone, or I should say Equinix cloud service there, which is part of the Equinix or Megaport backbone. And then from Equinix or Megaport, you can extend a dedicated express route connection into AVS. So again, you can think about the fact that maybe even if you're going down a multi-cloud path, this might provide a central point for you or your customers where you can extend from a cloud service provider such as Equinix or Megaport into multiple clouds or even into native clouds. Again, this service being able to run HCX over SD-WAN, so that's really the most important piece, or let's say that one that's creating the dependency, that'll be supported in HCX 4.2. And again, if you need dates or any type of further detail, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay. And I'll just quickly go to the Q&A here. I don't see any Q&A, but I would say this: if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the series, and I look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your sessions at UserCon.